The High Point Model 995P. Let's check it out. The High Point Model 995. They've been making these since 1994. It was during the first assault weapons ban, and it was a 10-round magazine. It was in 9mm, and since that time, they have expanded to a number of different calibers. This is a very budget-friendly firearm. Now, this is actually the pistol form. We have a pistol brace. You can get it without the brace, but I have yet to review a High Point. So when I was at NRA this past year, I talked to the guys at High Point. I said, I'm very interested in the 995. They had a number of barrels that were laid out from the carbines where people had shot squib after squib into the barrel. In fact, filling up on some all the way to the end of the barrel without destroying the barrel. But it was amazing at how strong the barrel was for the High Point carbines, considering the price. These are coming in very reasonably, and that is what is attractive and about this firearm. And we're going to take a look at some of the features. There are a lot. There are some downsides to it as well, but there are those who really can't afford as much that tend to gravitate toward the High Point. There are great options out there. There are more expensive options out there. But to me, the Model 995 has its place. And now in the pistol form, it just makes it a more compact gun. And we want to give a big thank you to High Point for sending us the Model 995P for this review. The High Point 995P, which is for pistol. This is one of the High Point carbines made in pistol form. It's new from High Point. And guys, let's just face it, High Point really is one of those very budget-friendly firearms. Some of the cheapest out there. But there's something about it that's kept these around. And guys, I have been interested in checking out a High Point carbine for a while. Now, there's the original pistols and the yeet cannons. And for a handgun, they're pretty bulky. But one thing about it, just like with the carbine, is it gives people on a real strict budget an option. And I'll never forget watching a video of a woman defending her home with a High Point carbine. Also, Nothing Fancy, years ago, had started talking about the High Point carbine, and while it was very cheap and there were some things about it that weren't necessarily the best, overall, it was a decent firearm. There is a place for the High Point carbines or pistols. Now, these were actually designed in 1994 during the first assault weapons ban. And it was really to bring a very inexpensive carbine to the market where people could afford and would not be restricted by the new firearm laws. They even make a version that has a thumb hole kind of stock to it to be able to sell to those that are even still restricted. These have been referred to as the Planet of the Apes gun. And back in the 70s, when they had Planet of the Apes, they were actually M1 carbines that had this overmold over them. To me, honestly, this is a much better looking gun than the Planet of the Apes gun. But regardless of the rumors, I just wanted to check it out. And one of the things about this is I've seen a number of guys that when they got it, they were kind of like, and then after the review, they were like, wow, this is surprising. And I'll tell you guys, we've already been through all of our shooting. I mean, there's a lot that we've done. For the money, I'm impressed. And there's a lot of guys out there that I've noticed in comments that are saying the same thing. But there are some downsides, and we'll talk about that as well. Okay, first off is we have a 10-round magazine. It is proprietary. It is a single stack mag. This does not fit anything that I know of, but they seem to work really well, especially their standard straight magazines. And we're going to go ahead and check the chamber, and the gun is empty. Now, there have been some changes made on these over the years. One is the last round bolt hold open, and we'll look at that in a sec. Really, overall, the appearance of it, while it's unorthodox, it's a little bit different. There's something about it that's appealing, especially once you take it to the range. Now, it has some heft to it, and it's a little thick. It's got a thicker handguard, and so it's definitely a little different. But with the blowback action of 9mm, while that's pretty tame in a sense, it does give you a little kickback to your shoulder. And obviously, the pistol grip just houses your magazine. This is also your magazine well. And for higher capacity, they have what they call the red ball magazines. And this is 2 high-point magazines fit together to give you 20 rounds. And these are fairly reliable. They can have some issues. We'll look at that when we take it to the range. But overall, I mean, it does give you an additional 10 rounds, and it just hangs out the bottom of the magazine. But it's definitely different, and it has the R with the circle right here at the bottom. But guys, I have to admit, that looks pretty weird, but actually it does work. Now we're going to start right here at the front, and we have a hooded front sight, and we have a fiber optic rod. So it's actually pretty easy to pick up. The rod actually goes in the vertical position. And you can see that the way it's attached right here, I mean, it's a bolt. I mean, there are some things about this that, you know, it came almost like out of a garage at a point, but yet, again, it functions. It does have a threaded barrel. It's 1/2 by 28 threads. On the carbine, the barrel kind of sticks out, and it does have a Picatinny rail next to the barrel. So they've done away with this. And it has a polycarbonate or some kind of polymer handguard. Now, it has these ridges on here, which makes it look really different. I mean, it does look kind of similar to a space science fiction gun. But this is very textured. I mean, it's easy to grip on your hand. And then we have a Picatinny rail section at the bottom. This can be removed. And then, of course, on top, it's smooth. And then we have a pick rail that goes all the way back. And your sight, this is fully adjustable. You can actually remove this sight completely if you wanted to put backup sights on here. So that gives you an option, and of course, to put on your optic. Now, we did run an optic on this, at least for accuracy. And I'll be honest, I was surprised at the accuracy. The top rail here, though, has some relief cuts. And of course, this is polymer as well. But the receiver is a stamped metal receiver. Now, I like that. I like that better than an alloy pot metal type receiver. And HK uses these. A lot of different companies use that stamp, well, the AK-47. So this is not a bad thing. In fact, it gives it really a little bit of a quality appearance to it because it has that steel stamped metal. And the finish is nice. It's a matte finish. We have a heavy bolt, and it is blowback action. So it comes back. Of course, we have our last round bolt hold open, and then we can just pull it back. But again, that heavy mass bolt is really needed for your blowback action. But to be honest, when you're shooting it, the felt recoil is very manageable. Pistol grip, we have some texturing right here where your thumb goes, and then it kind of has this molded touch to it, almost like it was molded in someone's hand. But gripping it, you know, it's not a bad grip. A little thick, but not too bad. And here we have the trigger. We'll take a quicker look at that in a minute, but a little bit different skeletonized. It is polymer. And then we have our serial number right here at this underneath the receiver. Now this whole lower receiver is polymer. All the underneath under the stamping. In fact, this continues the handguard all the way to the end. So it's really just one piece. And then where your stock would come in, they've capped that off. We have a metal cap that comes around, and then we have a buffer tube, and then this fits your standard buffer tubes. And then we have a blade brace, which is nice. These work very well, and it gives you a nice stable platform. Right under the trigger guard, there is this disc. I'm not really sure what the purpose is, but there it is. And this just allows you to get a nice grip on it, allows you to get your finger right there in the right spot with your trigger. Here is your magazine release, and it drops those magazines out really easily. We have our safety here. Of course, up is safe, down is fire, which is the right way to go. We have our charging handle, which is knurled. It does spin, and you can bring this back. Now, even High Point says that if you really want to retain this, you should put some blue thread locker on this, and it's really easy to take on and off. But definitely some different type assembly that's gone on here. And it does have a tool to be able to disassemble it. There's a lot of different screws here and there. Here is a disassembly portion here, and even right here. Then we have the High Point logo right here in the Picatinny rail section. Now, this is polymer. but it tends to hold up very well. Now here on the rear sight, we do have markings for elevation and for windage, and again, this is adjustable, and they're clearly marked. Now, one thing about the Hi-Point carbine is it regularly scores very high with the gun test magazine because they're just reliable. Typically, Full Metal Jacket is the most reliable, obviously. They just shoot really well. The accuracy is really good. And really, the fit and finish, while it's a little archaic, honestly, it works. In fact, in 2019, this was the 7th most popular carbine sold in the U.S. Now, obviously, this is the pistol form. But on a different note, this was actually used by Eric Harris in the Columbine shootings. Because it is a very budget-friendly firearm, we do see a lot of gang members using these and people that are looking for something cheap to be able to go out and commit their deeds. But that is not the rifle's fault. And the one thing about it is, again, it allows for people that just can't afford anything more to have a nice little carbine, or in this case, a pistol. You have a longer sight radius, a little more handling ability, and it just helps with the recoil. Now the carbine comes in not only 9mm, it also comes in 40 Smith & Wesson, 45 ACP, 10mm, 380 ACP, and 30 Super Carry. So there's a lot of different ammo choices out there to match whatever yeet cannon you're carrying. Now they do have options for a 5, 10, 15, and again 20 round magazine. And guys, these are made in the USA in Mansfield, Ohio. And they're part of MKS Supply, which actually also owns Inland, which Inland was one of the companies that made the M1 carbine originally. Now you have a sling setup that is included with your mounts and your keepers and your sling. And also there is included a takedown tool. And this just allows you to break this down a little easier. All right, let's check the trigger pull action. So we have take up right here, a lot of mush, and then we have a break. Reset right there, pretty much all the way out. Trigger pull weight with our Lyman trigger gauge from Brownells. 3 pounds, 10 ounces. 3 pounds, 3.9 ounces. So about 3.5 pounds. Very detailed owner's manual with actual photos. It gives you a lot of detail, but then it gets into the disassembly. And there is a lot of disassembly. It is one of the things about the Hi-Point that it does take quite a bit to get this apart. It's very doable. It just takes a little time. A little more complicated than a lot of your firearms. But a lot of that has to do with the design and keeping the price down. We have a 13¼ inch barrel, and overall length is 20 3/4 inches. All right, and the weight of the Hi-Point 995P, 6 pounds, 9.8 ounces. Big thank you to Fiocchi for sponsoring our ammo, all made in the USA, one of the biggest suppliers of ammunition in the country. Now, Hi-Point comes with this 10-round magazine. It's more like a 1911 style. And then they have what they call the red ball mags. Now, these are definitely unorthodox. This actually holds 20 rounds. And so this gives you a 20-round mag capacity. The one thing about the Hi-Point is it's a single stack. So you're going to get what you get. But these are fairly easy to load, just like your standard 1911 magazines. Guys, we have the Hi-Point. This is the model 995P. This is in the pistol form. These carbines have been around for a long time, along with their standard Hi-Points and the yeet cannons and all that. But one of the things about the Hi-Point is that while it is somewhat a crude design in a sense, they just work. And one of the things that really led me to this was Nothing Fancy. He did some videos about the Hi-Point carbine years ago and talked about just how reliable they were. Using Full Metal Jacket ammunition. Now, it's a single stack magazine, so they have what they call the red ball magazine. It's 2 magazines put together. It also comes with a standard 10-round magazine. This is 20 rounds. Really, the feel of this belies the looks, and honestly, it looks pretty decent. It looks like something out of a science fiction movie. But the magazines, they go right into the grip, and then when you have your charging handle back here. There is Picatinny rail all on top. The sights are removable, but the sights actually are pretty good. Fiber optic at the front, and we have an aperture at the back. But we just loaded one in. I mean, it just runs. And it's one of those things that's more of a budget size, but you know, again, like I talked about when I saw the barrels that were just full of squibs, these actually have some quality components in them. So even for the price, but a really compact little option. And they've been around for a long time, and I see them every once in a while at gun shows and stuff, and I've always thought about just stopping and picking one up because I have heard a lot of good things. I mean, you know, it runs, and of course we'll see the accuracy on it, but overall, we've had a lot of fun with it. It's a high point, but actually it's just pretty cool. Guys, when attaching a new optic to your rifle, you want to get it sighted in, and you can spend a lot of ammo and time trying to walk it in. We like the Tactical Elite's Sight Right 2.0. It's a green laser, and it lines up right to the bore to your target. It saves you time, and we've used these quite a bit. They are excellent. It's a green laser. Just put it in the end of your bore, and then you can just go ahead, and it really gets you on paper. So check out tacticalelites.com. Now, typically we'll break this down and I'll show you how to disassemble it. It takes about 10 minutes, so it would be half the video. But it's a very concise direction, and then there are some really good videos out there as well. I just felt like taking this apart is going to take a lot of time. And we may do actually a disassembly video of the Hi-Point 995P. The retail price on the 995P is $379. Add the brace and it's $399. That's retail. I'm seeing the Hi-Point carbines going for about $260 up to about $300 plus. It's according to the features you get. There's a lot of different models that they offer, a lot of different finishes, and again, a lot of different calibers. So there is a fairly wide range because these are, again, very popular. And while a lot of people kind of look at these as just a very cheap option, they're very reliable and they're fairly robust. So what are some pros and cons? Well, it's an inexpensive option for those on a tight budget. And there are some people that just can't afford it. So having something like this gives you some options. And honestly, it's the same with the Hi-Point pistol. The Yeet Cannon is a very budget-friendly gun, but if you need something and that's all you have, it's better than a sharp stick, and actually much better because they tend to be very reliable and accurate. Years ago, John Taffin, who was one of the writers of Guns and Ammo, he said that when he reviewed the original Hi-Point pistol, he said reliability was perfect with full metal jacket ammunition. He said hollow points had a few problems. He said accuracy, he said it would outshoot some of his custom 1911s, and this was in 45 ACP. But he said style is zero. So you've got to use this as a tool, and if this is what you can afford, it can be effective. Disassembly is definitely a con. There's a lot that's involved in it. The trigger, I mean, it's mushy, but it is what it is. Sights aren't too bad, and I like the fiber optic sight, and you can take this off if you just want to put an optic on it or you want to put backup sights. It'd be nice to have a Picatinny rail here on the side, but it would make this a lot thicker. I think it really actually fits pretty well in the hand when you put it on. In fact, it feels a lot like one of the clamshell AR-15, the A2s, so maybe not. Maybe have an option for it, but honestly, I think it would add too much width. I like the stamped receiver. It's very well done, and it tends to hold up. You do have other mag options, and of course, with the 20-rounder, I mean, this gives you that option. As far as reliability, we had pretty decent reliability with these, but there was some hiccups. With the standard 10-rounder, though, we didn't have any, and there are other mag options. And there's a lot of accessories that go around these firearms. If you don't like the blade, You can upgrade it to a different type pistol brace. And obviously this takes the standard AR-15 buffer tube, so there's a lot of options there. So overall, a very low-priced, unorthodox firearm, and yet it has a lot of cool features, and really, there's just something about it that I just like. And to be honest, it could be great for a truck gun. It could be great for just something to go out and plink with, to have fun, and in the zombie apocalypse, if your neighbor needs something, this might be an excellent candidate. So guys, we have a lot of choices. There's a lot of firearms out on the market, and sometimes it just gets to the point that you can't afford something, or maybe it's something you just want to have for a boat gun, for a truck gun. You don't want something that's expensive, and honestly, just taking this out is a lot of fun. It definitely has a very unique look to it, but it has a lot of cool features, and for the money, honestly, it kind of surpasses, to me, what this gun retails for. And also, with all the different accessories that it comes with, it really, it upgrades the value. So while the Hi-Point carbine may not be for you, this is definitely something that is reliable, it's fairly accurate, and it's just a lot of fun. And guys, that's the one thing about it. We live in the golden age of firearms. There are a lot of choices, and it covers all the gamut of gun owners. Whether you're buying an HK or the Hi-Point, it just gives you something to defend your home with. And again, a big thank you to Hi-Point for providing the Model 995P for this review. Be strong, be of good courage. God bless America. Long live the Republic. We have a crossbolt set. Nope. And I've seen a number of different reviews where, okay, I don't want to do that. Big thank you to Fiocchi for sponsoring our ammo, all made in the USA. Some of the best ammunition. It's not some of the best. It should be the best, the best. These are made in Mansfield, Ohio. Ohio. They're very bulky. They're somewhat very, sometimes less than that.